How many times a week do we ask, what time is it?
Hey Carolyn, what time is it?
Oh, Tom, it's about 7 o'clock and I'm doing my devotions like I do every morning, drinking a cup of coffee. It's a lovely day outside. Life is good.
Hey Carolyn, what time is it?
Oh, well, Tom, it's clearly breakfast time and I'm going to have some blueberry pancakes and have a really good start to the day.
Hey Carolyn, what time is it?
Hey, Tom, it's 10:21 and I'm working on my computer.
Carolyn, what time is it?
Lunchtime, Tom. See, bread from store, tomatoes from garden, and do you have to keep videotaping me doing stuff in the day?
Hey Carolyn, what time is it?
Tom, I'm busy. I'm still at the computer. I often am here, for hours a day, and I'm answering emails and sending off emails and writing sermons and doing all kinds of stuff. And will you stop following me and asking me what time is it? Because this is getting really old really fast.
Hello?
What time is it?
What time is it? What time is it? I don't want to answer that question again today or for the next week or for the next month. Thank you very much.
You know, I find it interesting.
What is interesting?
Well, every time I said, what time is it? You didn't just answer with the time of day, but you told me what you were doing.
Well, yes, that would be an appropriate response to your question. What time is it? I mean, it would be pretty funny if I answered what time is it by telling you how a watch was made.
Wait a second, that's exactly what I do.
Yeah.
You've said it many times. You know, you ask me what time it is, and I give you a 20-minute dissertation on the history of the wristwatch.
True. See, our minds work in very different ways, Tom. Mine is quite time sensitive. I know what I have to do and when I have to do it, and I'm very attuned to that.
And then I'm the one saying you have to slow down because you're making my head spin with everything you're trying to get done today.
Mm-hmm.
It is a well-known fact that when someone has adult attention deficit disorder, as I do, their brains basically have no time restrictions whatsoever, nor do they have a working sense of the passage of time. Therefore, it's possible for me and others like me to get completely lost or hyper-focused in the present moment or activity with no sense of urgency driving me to do something or anything else. Unless Carolyn reminds me.
True, I'm often your inner clock reminding you of what you were going to do at the moment because you get so lost in whatever you're doing that you forget what it was that you were going to do. Yeah, that's true. As for me, I'd say I have a more of a linear mindset where I know what I have to do at this time and at that time and the other time. Church starts at a certain time, for instance. Meetings start at certain times. It would be absolute chaos if everyone came to a meeting at a different time. It would be really hard to decide things, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's true, but I remember you mentioning to me that you liked it when you lived in different cultures that weren't so time-focused.
True. For instance, when I taught water safety in Northern Ontario, I was approached by one of the people on the reserve, and he said to me, Carolyn, what do you want to go on a picnic with us? And I said, sure. What day are we going on the picnic? And he looked at me and he laughed and he said, we'll go when the weather's good. And I must have looked a little funny because he said, you know, you white people, you decide on a certain day that you want to go on a picnic, and if it rains on that day, then you're all upset that you can't go on your picnic, but we just go when the weather's right. And so I saw his point. So we went on the picnic when the weather was right. And it was a feast. We had moose and bannock and other lovely things that they cooked, and we just had a really good time and a lovely day. And we didn't have to worry about be all uptight about whether the weather was going to be good or not. So it worked really well. I really enjoyed that mindset. It was very relaxing. You can't organize like this nearly so well when you have a job on certain days, right? Or when you have meetings at certain times, or the sort of mindset of the sort of circular mindset works best at times when you're sort of in nature, when you're tuned to nature and the cycles of and seasons of life. It's a circular mindset. When the time is right, we'll do things.
Right. You mean like in Ecclesiastes? For everything there is a season, a time for every matter under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to harvest.
Yes, that's the Hebrew mindset, is a circular mindset. That's the way they thought. I mean, think about a clock. It's not linear, it's circular, it's round. The hands go round and round. There's no beginning and no end. And that's life and history in a circular mindset is thought of as a cycle of beginnings and endings, but it's going round and round.
And what about the linear mindset?
Well, the linear mindset comes to us from the Greek culture, and it's linear. It's, there's a beginning and there is an ending. There's point A, and then to point B, and then there's logic, because A plus B equals C. You see, it's all in a line there. Or you can also put it this way: if I have a meeting at this time and have at 2 o'clock, then I have a meeting at 3 o'clock, and I have to be done that meeting by 4 so that I can then have a report done by 5. And that's a linear timeline. And if someone calls me in the middle of that very tight linear timeline, I might get upset because I don't have time to deal with that particular issue right now, you see. So it can be hard that way. The Greek mindset, and now our Western mindset, tends to look at God even from a linear perspective. So you look at each thing that is said about God or that you read about God, and then you think that you can reach the right conclusion about God based on your knowledge, based on the facts. And then the assumption is that you'll be able to deepen your faith based on the facts. But when it comes to God, the Hebrew people didn't think this way at all. They thought of God as one to be experienced. You deepen your faith through an experience of God. It's all about relationship with God and one another, and mystery. Why mystery? Because we humans can't know all there is to know about God, and that's okay. We don't have to know all there is to know about God.
So, are individual people one or the other? Like, in other words, are they either linear thinkers or circular thinkers?
Well, they can be both. I, for instance, am a very linear thinker when I'm focused on getting things done within a certain time frame, but I'm also a very circular thinker, and I can choose to be a circular thinker when people call me or when I'm talking with them and I'm just present with them for as long as they need me to be present with them. And that's more circular mindset. It's a mindset about relationships.
And what effect does that have on your relationship with God?
Well, so their logic breaks down. God's timeline is not my timeline, no matter how frustrated I might get with that. God might not give me something that I think I should learn in the next week. God might, or experience of God in the next week. God might not give me the answer that I'm seeking, or an experience of God for another few months or a year or two. So God says to me, Carolyn, I know the results that are best for you. Trust me, and your timeline is not my timeline. I do things in the right time. And by the way, there is a lot that you don't understand. So there's a time to think and a time to understand and a time to just let go and let me be God. I'm beyond logic. I'm beyond time. Yet I'm also in logic and in time at the same time. It's a mystery that you just can't fully understand on earth.
So what you're saying is that it's helpful to get out of our logical mindsets when we approach God.
Yes, it can be very helpful. However, logic can be very important to draw us closer to God. And here, one of the things I'm thinking about is apologetics. Now, you love apologetics, Tom, so you can explain what apologetics is.
Apologetics, very simply, is the reasoned argument or justification for following God. Not to simply say, well, because of an emotional response or a gut feeling that I have, but rather showing how ours is a reasonable faith that makes sense via things like history, archaeology, science, or what have you. It can really help some people come to know God.
Yes, and then once we have the logic, which could be through reasoned argument, it could be through reading the Bible, it could even be through church doctrine, and it takes us so far. And when we come to the end of it, there we can stand and we can wait for an experience of God, or for God to speak to us, and for us to know God on a relationship level in a more intimate way.
So you mean you just stand there and wait? You could be there quite a while. We've already established that God doesn't operate in our sense of linear time.
No, I don't just stand there and wait. God could operate at any time. But I do wait with openness. I wait with a seeking after God, or a heart open to God. And I'm trying to listen to the answer, because I could miss the answer if I stop trying to listen to what God is saying to me.
That's true, you could. And I'm sure the people watching this morning have learned something, and now what I would like you to hear me saying is it's time to wrap up the sermon.
Hey, time stuff is my thing.
Usually, but life has its little surprises. So, do you have any last words of wisdom for the congregation? Speak now, or forever hold your peace.
Thanks, Tom. Okay, my words of wisdom are: this week, every time you think, what time is it? Or someone asks you, what time is it? You answer inside, it's time to show God's love. So what time is it, Tom?
It's time to show God's love. And you can show God's love right now by doing your prayer at the end of the sermon.
Thanks once again, Tom. Let's pray. Every time over the next week, when we look at our watches or are asked what time it is, help us to think about showing your love, God, just like I'm showing your love, by not completely losing patience with Tom right now. Help us, each of us, to show your love, whether we are eating with our family, doing chores, working, listening, or talking on the phone. And if we're mostly linear thinkers, help us to say something like, God, you are mystery. Help me to open my mind to experience you, who can't be fully contained or explained. Amen.